Break it up! Cool it, officer. He's just blowing hot air.
The 1970s animation pushed boundaries that horrified censors worldwide. These 10 animated films were banned, cut, or heavily restricted for their adult content, political themes, and graphic imagery that challenged the perception of animation as children's entertainment. Censorship boards struggled with cartoons that dared to explore mature themes. The 9 Lives of Fritz the Cat, 1974. Robert Crumb disowned this unauthorized sequel to his underground comic character, but censors banned it anyway for its graphic content and drug themes. The film follows Fritz through 9 fantasy scenarios involving narcotics, violence, and adult situations that made censorship boards uncomfortable. Director Robert Taylor created elaborate sequences showing Fritz's drug-induced hallucinations and violent encounters with law enforcement. The animation style maintained Crumb's distinctive underground aesthetic while pushing boundaries even further than the original. Several countries banned theatrical distribution entirely, while others demanded extensive cuts to remove drug use and graphic violence. The film's combination of cartoon animals engaging in adult behavior violated censors' expectations about animated entertainment. The movie's anti-establishment themes and countercultural content made it particularly controversial during the conservative backlash of the mid-1970s. Censors worried about the film's potential influence on young viewers who might stumble upon what appeared to be innocent cartoon entertainment but contained explicitly mature content. 9. Coonskin, 1975. Ralph Bakshi's controversial satire faced nationwide boycotts and censorship for its provocative racial imagery and political commentary. The film uses animation and live action to tell African-American folk tales with deliberately shocking racial caricatures that horrified censorship boards. The movie's premise involves 3 characters escaping prison to seek fortune in Harlem, encountering corrupt police, organized crime, and systemic racism. Bakshi's intention was satirical commentary on racial stereotypes, but censors found the imagery too inflammatory for public consumption. The Congress of Racial Equality organized protests that forced many theaters to cancel screenings, while international distributors refused to handle the film. The controversy overshadowed any artistic merit as censors focused solely on the provocative imagery. British censors banned the film entirely, considering it potentially incendiary for race relations. American censors demanded cuts to violence and racial content, but Bakshi refused to compromise his vision, leading to extremely limited distribution. The film's suppression demonstrated how controversial animation could become when tackling serious social issues rather than providing simple entertainment for mass audiences. 8. Watership Down, 1978. Martin Rosen's adaptation of Richard Adams' novel shocked censors with its graphic violence and disturbing imagery, despite featuring cartoon rabbits. The film's realistic depiction of animal violence and death proved too intense for many censorship boards. The movie follows a group of rabbits seeking new territory after their warren faces destruction. The animation depicts rabbit society with brutal honesty, including predator attacks, territorial warfare, and environmental destruction that horrified family-oriented censors. Several countries banned the film from children's screenings due to traumatic imagery, including rabbit fights, blood, and disturbing dream sequences. The PG rating proved controversial, as parents complained about nightmares and psychological trauma in young viewers. Censors struggled to classify a film that looked like children's entertainment, but contained mature themes about survival, leadership, and mortality. The realistic animation style made the violence more disturbing than typical cartoon slapstick. The film's environmental message about habitat destruction added political controversy to the violence concerns. Censors worried that the combination of graphic content and ecological themes might indoctrinate children with inappropriate political viewpoints. 7. Fantastic Planet, 1973. René Laloux's surreal science fiction allegory faced censorship for its anti-authoritarian themes and disturbing imagery. The film presents humans as pets to giant alien beings in this French-Czechoslovakian co-production that challenged political orthodoxy. The story's obvious parallels to colonialism, oppression, and social revolution made censors nervous about its political implications. The aliens' treatment of humans as livestock provided uncomfortable metaphors for racial and class oppression. Several Eastern European countries banned the film despite its Czech origins, worried about encouraging anti-government sentiment. The animation's psychedelic imagery and abstract violence confused censors unsure how to classify its content. The film's drug-influenced visual style and counterculture themes made it controversial during the height of anti-drug campaigns. Censors worried that the surreal imagery might appeal to drug users or encourage experimentation with consciousness-altering substances. Western censors found the communist symbolism and anti-capitalist themes potentially subversive, while communist countries objected to the anti-authoritarian message. The film's universal critique of oppression made it controversial across political systems, leading to widespread censorship and limited distribution. 6. The Lord of the Rings, 1978. Ralph Bakshi's ambitious adaptation faced censorship for its dark themes and graphic violence that contradicted expectations for fantasy entertainment. The film's realistic approach to Tolkien's warfare and political corruption disturbed censors expecting lighter fairy tale material. The rotoscoped animation technique created realistic human movement that made the violence more disturbing than traditional cartoon imagery. Battle sequences depicted graphic sword combat and mass casualties that censors found inappropriate for general audiences. Several countries edited the film's violence and political themes, particularly scenes depicting corruption and authoritarian control. The movie's anti-war themes and criticism of power structures made censors uncomfortable during the Cold War era. The film's incomplete adaptation left audiences with downbeat conclusion emphasizing warfare's futility rather than fantasy escapism. Censors worried about the psychological impact on younger viewers expecting heroic adventure rather than brutal realism. Religious censors objected to the film's magical themes and pagan imagery, while political censors worried about anti-establishment messages. The combination of violence, politics, and occult themes created multiple censorship challenges that limited the film's international distribution significantly. 5. Wizards, 1977. Ralph Bakshi's post-apocalyptic fantasy combined magic with Nazi imagery that horrified censors worldwide. The film's use of actual Third Reich footage within animated fantasy context created unprecedented censorship challenges for classification boards. The story follows a good wizard battling his evil brother who uses Nazi propaganda and imagery to build a fascist army. Bakshi's integration of historical footage with fantasy animation created disturbing juxtapositions that censors found potentially dangerous. German censors banned the film entirely due to its Nazi imagery and symbols, while other European countries demanded extensive cuts. The combination of swastikas, fascist propaganda, and fantasy violence violated numerous national censorship guidelines. The film's anti-war message was overshadowed by controversy over its graphic historical footage and violent imagery. Censors worried that the fantasy context might trivialize or romanticize fascist imagery for impressionable viewers. 4. Heavy Traffic, 1973. Ralph Bakshi's urban drama shocked censors with its graphic depiction of city life, violence, and adult relationships. The film follows young Michael through New York's underbelly, encountering crime, corruption, and moral decay that censors found unsuitable for any audience. The animation combines realistic rotoscoping with exaggerated character design to create disturbing urban environments. Bakshi's unflinching portrayal of drugs, violence, and criminal behavior challenged censors' understanding of animated entertainment possibilities. British censors banned the film entirely, while American ratings boards struggled to classify its content appropriately. The movie's adult themes and graphic imagery violated expectations for animated features as family entertainment. The film's critique of urban decay and social breakdown added political controversy to its content concerns. Censors worried about encouraging antisocial behavior or promoting negative stereotypes about urban communities and minority populations. International distributors refused to handle the film due to censorship challenges, limiting its release to underground theaters and adult venues. The controversy demonstrated how animation could address serious social issues while creating unprecedented classification problems for traditional censorship systems. 3. American Pop, 1981. Ralph Bakshi's ambitious musical history faced censorship for its graphic violence and mature themes spanning multiple generations. The film traces 4 generations of musicians through American history, depicting war, organized crime, and social upheaval with unflinching realism. The rotoscoped animation technique created realistic depictions of violence, including World War I combat, gangster warfare, and urban crime that censors found too graphic for general audiences. The historical scope didn't excuse the brutal imagery. Several countries banned or heavily edited the film's violence and political content, particularly sequences depicting organized crime and government corruption. The movie's critical view of American society troubled censors during the patriotic Reagan era. The film's drug themes and rock music content added controversy to the violence concerns. Censors worried about glorifying drug culture and rebellious behavior through the appealing medium of animated entertainment. International censors struggled with the film's complex narrative structure and historical themes, often cutting sequences that left the story incomprehensible. The widespread censorship prevented the film from reaching its intended audience and achieving commercial or critical success. 2. The Shame of the Jungle, 1975. This Belgian adult animation became notorious for its explicit content and crude humor that violated decency standards worldwide. The film parodies Tarzan through graphic situations and adult themes that censors found completely unacceptable for any public screening. Directors Picha and Boris Sulzinger created deliberately provocative content that pushed animation into unprecedented territory. The film's combination of familiar characters with adult situations created cognitive dissonance that horrified family-oriented censors. Countries across Europe and North America banned the film entirely, refusing any classification that might allow public access. The explicit animation and crude humor violated virtually every international standard for public entertainment. The film's parody elements couldn't protect it from censorship, as authorities focused on the graphic content rather than satirical intent. Censors worried about the corruption of beloved childhood characters through inappropriate adult contexts. Underground distribution and adult theater screenings became the only venues for the film's exhibition. The complete censorship demonstrated the limits of acceptable animated content and established boundaries that animation would continue challenging throughout the decade. 1. Fritz the Cat, 1972. Ralph Bakshi's groundbreaking adaptation of Robert Crumb's underground comic became the first animated feature to receive an X rating. The film's frank depiction of drugs, violence, and adult behavior in anthropomorphic animal characters shocked censors worldwide. Fritz's college adventures include protests, parties, and encounters with various animal characters engaging in adult activities that violated every expectation for animated entertainment. Bakshi's realistic animation style made the content more disturbing than typical cartoon imagery. Multiple countries banned the film entirely, while others restricted it to adult venues only. The movie's combination of cartoon animals with explicit content created unprecedented classification challenges for censorship boards globally. The film's countercultural themes and anti-establishment message added political controversy to content concerns. Censors worried about encouraging rebellious behavior and drug experimentation through appealing animated characters. These banned animated films proved that cartoons could tackle adult themes and challenge social conventions. Censorship couldn't stop animation's evolution into mature artistic expression. Which controversial animated classic would you dare to discover? Subscribe for more forbidden film history.